Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we are tracking for you this evening. We've got lots of earnings coming in and Wipro's earnings have come in. Of course, the market's ending at a record high, but then we saw a sell-off coming in terms of intraday trade, which impacted the market movement. Enterprises raised their inflation forecast on the back of the inflation print that came in last evening. Wipro's revenues declined nearly 3% in Q1 on constant currency. Shares of TCS rise after meeting muted estimates in Q1. Shares of PSU Bank see profit booking as Federal Bank's margins shrink. Prime Minister Modi's two-day visit to France begins today. After hitting a 60-year high, water levels in the Yamuna continue to rise. The Delhi government makes preparations for evacuating people from areas close to the banks. Disney gives CEO Bob Iger 2 more years to find his successor. Well, let's go straight to the market action of the day. We saw a big intraday swing, record highs, and then we saw the markets giving up some of those gains. Surbi standing by now to take us through the market action. Surbi, what went on today?
Well, today will have to qualify as a bit of a disappointing day for the bulls. And the reason I say that, despite a 50-point gain on the index, is that it is for the 6th consecutive session that the Nifty didn't close above the 19,500 mark. In fact, it had everything going for it today. The momentum was very, very sharp. The Nifty and the Sensex both hit fresh all-time highs in the first 1.5 hours of trade. You had great global cues coming in. You even had buying in IT stocks. But despite all of that, the second half of the session turned out to be very, very different. Suddenly, there was a rapid fall in the mid-cap arena, and then it extended to large caps. A lot of the selling was led by auto stocks. There was selling in FMCG and then banks. Today was the weekly expiry for the Bank Nifty, and that index immediately cooled off after around 130 or so, and there was no meaningful recovery. On the Nifty, it was really the IT stocks that continued to fight back all the way, which is why towards the end we managed to at least close above 19,400, because in the last half hour, even that level had been breached. Reliance was another big stock that was reversing direction, adding pressure on the downside. But then, as I said, for what it's worth, IT saw the buy-on dips play out, and classic, very smart buy-on dips. TCS, Infosys, even LTI-Mindtree, which makes its debut on the Nifty. These stocks had some gains. HCL Tech also didn't fall too much, despite that howler of a number coming in for the first quarter. Just a word on mid-caps. Now, the mid-cap index has closed down about 0.7%. Specifically, want to point out that there was more selling today on Delta Corp and Nazara after the clarifications came in from the Revenue Secretary to CNBC-TV18 about the 28% GST level for casinos and online gaming. Interestingly, however, some of the new age companies ended positive. So let me end on that optimistic note. We had good buying on Zomato, for instance. Even Delivery and PB Fintech managed to find some gainers. But overall, a lot of volatility. So we need to watch out for tomorrow's session very carefully.
Yes, we will be watching out for tomorrow's session closely. Surbi, many thanks for joining us. And we are in the midst of earnings season. Software major Wipro has just announced its first quarter numbers. Revenues have declined nearly 3% in Q1 on a constant currency basis. The company's guidance projects a tepid revenue growth in Q2 and even warns of a contraction. Reema is standing by with more on Wipro's management commentary as well as the fine print of the results. Reema.
Thanks so much for that. So it's a weak quarter, but in line with muted expectations. The street was not expecting fireworks this time, and it's been a weak performance. So constant currency revenue growth has contracted by 2.8% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. Now, Wipro had told us last quarter that in Q1, revenues for the company will either fall -1% or up to -3%. What the company has delivered at -2.8% is at the lower end of their own guidance and slightly worse than street expectations, which were at -2 to -2.2%. It's also worse compared to peers. So TCS had a flat growth this time, and HCL Tech had a -1.3 performance. The guidance for the next quarter is quite crucial, and here the company is guiding for -2 to +1%. So the good part in the guidance is at least they're holding out the possibility of a positive growth, because consensus expectations was that the guidance for the next quarter will either be 0 to 2 or -1 to -3%, which basically means everyone was expecting for a negative growth in Q2. But at least Wipro is holding out the hope for a positive guidance. Margins have declined by 25 basis points. There is no wage hike impact, so the weakness in margins is purely because their revenues have contracted. Deal wins continue to be robust. This is something that we've seen across for the industry. Total bookings at $3.7 billion is slightly lower compared to what we had in the prior quarter, but the large deal bookings at $1.2 billion is a pickup on a sequential basis. I think the bigger miss and a telling sign in Wipro's numbers this time is the very sharp headcount addition. Headcount for the company has fallen by more than 7,000 employees on a quarter-on-quarter basis. We're looking at a big contraction in the company's headcount. Just to put it in context, TCS at least managed to increase their headcount by 500. For HCL Tech, it was a revenue headcount decline of 2,500. But for Wipro, at more than 7,000, this is a weak number. Attrition, as we've seen with the case of others, has fallen by 17.3%. Thierry Delaporte, CEO, MD of the company, says, despite a gradual reduction in clients' discretionary spending, we maintain new business momentum, basically referring to the deal wins that the company has announced. So all in all, it's a weak showing, but it's predictable, in line with what the street was anticipating. Back to you.
All right, Reema, many thanks for joining us. That was Wipro for you. But remember, TCS also came out with its numbers overnight, reporting a muted set of numbers in Q1. But as Reema was pointing out, this was also along expected lines. Deal wins have been the silver lining, staying above $10 billion for the second straight quarter. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, the CEO, Krithivasan, said that while the total contract value remains strong, he's unsure when economic macro uncertainties will subside.
Our position is like you saw TCS.